They told us no one walks out of the ashen flat. They said it like it was just a fact, the way you'd tell someone the sun comes up in the east. And by the third day out there, I had started to believe them. Let me back up. My name is Daniel Reyes. Back then I was 23 and I thought I knew what scared meant. I didn't, not yet. We were a small recovery team, 11 of us, sent out to pull a downed transport crew from a stretch of desert that didn't even have a real name on the maps. Just a grid number and a nickname the older guys used, the Ashen Flat, because the sand out there isn't gold like you picture, it's gray. Pale, dead gray, like somebody burned the whole world a long time ago and forgot to clean up. We rolled out before dawn, 2 vehicles. The air was cold in a way that desert cold always surprises you with, that dry bite that gets into your teeth. I remember our sergeant, a man named Oshino, sitting up front with a thermos of coffee he refused to share, humming some song under his breath. He always hummed when he was nervous. We pretended not to notice. That was the deal with Oshino. You let him hum, he let you pretend you weren't scared. The job was supposed to be simple. Find the transport, recover whoever was left, get out before noon. 8 hours in and out. We found the transport by 10, what was left of it. It had gone down hard, nose first into a ridge, and there was nobody to recover. Just the heat and the silence and a smell I won't describe to you. Oshino stood there a long time, hat in his hand, and then he said the thing soldiers say when there's nothing else. He said their names out loud, even though he didn't know them. Just read them off the manifest, slow like a prayer. That's when the first shot came. You don't hear a long shot before it hits, that's the part movies get wrong. The crack comes after, a fraction of a second behind, like the world hiccuping. One of our guys, a kid named Pell from somewhere up north, just folded. No warning, 1 second standing, next second down, and then the desert opened up on us. They were in the ridges to the east. We never saw them clearly, just muzzle flash and dust and the sound, that awful sound, sand and metal everywhere. We got behind the wrecked transport and the 2 vehicles and we returned fire at nothing, at heat shimmer, at ghosts. Oshino was shouting positions. I was shaking so hard I could barely hold my rifle. I want to be honest with you about that, I was not brave. I was a scared kid behind a burned-out truck, and I thought I was going to die in a place that didn't even have a name. By the time the sun was straight overhead, we had lost 3, Pell and 2 others, men I'd eaten breakfast with that morning. The radio was dead, smashed in the first vehicle when a round went through it. We had no air support, no way to call out, nothing. Oshino crawled over to me at one point, his face gray with dust, blood crusted along one ear. He grabbed my collar and put his mouth right against it so I could hear him over the noise. They've got us boxed, he said, 3 sides, maybe more coming. What do we do? I asked him. He didn't answer right away, and that silence told me more than any words could have. Oshino always had an answer, always. The man could find a way out of anything, that's why we followed him. But out there on the ashen flat with 3 men dead and the radio gone and the enemy in the high ground on 3 sides, my sergeant didn't have an answer. He just looked at me and I watched him decide what to say, and finally he said, "We hold, we wait for dark, we try to break out." We both knew dark was 6 hours away. We both knew we wouldn't last 6 hours. So that's where we were, 8 of us pinned in the open, low on water, lower on hope. The kind of situation where you stop thinking about getting home and start thinking about whether it'll hurt. I caught myself doing it, wondering, and I hated myself for it because there were men beside me, still fighting, still counting on each other, and here I was already halfway gone in my head. Then Oshino tapped my shoulder and pointed west. West was the only direction nobody was shooting from. Just open desert, dune after dune of that dead gray sand, rolling out to a horizon that wobbled in the heat. And out there, maybe 800 meters off on top of one of the high dunes, something had changed. I didn't see it at first. I had to follow Oshino's finger and squint, and then I caught it. A shape. Low, flat against the sand, the color of the sand itself. If it hadn't moved, I'd never have spotted it. It was a person, lying prone on the crest of the dune, facing toward us, toward the ridges where the enemy was dug in. "One of ours," I said. "We don't have anybody out there," Oshino said quietly. "Nobody." We watched. The shape didn't move again. For a long minute I thought maybe I'd imagined it, maybe the heat was getting to me, the way it does, making you see water that isn't there and people who aren't real. And then one of the ridges to the east went quiet. I mean, a position that had been hammering us for an hour, a heavy gun, suddenly stopped, just stopped, mid-burst, and a half-second later that crack reached us, that long-shot hiccup rolling in from the west. From the dunes. Oshino and I looked at each other. Neither of us said anything. We didn't have a word for what we were seeing yet. The shape on the dunes still hadn't moved. But another position on the ridge had gone silent now. And then another, one at a time, methodical, patient, like someone turning off lights in a house room by room. Whoever was out there in the gray sand was not panicking and not rushing. They were just quietly taking the enemy apart. "Who is that?" I whispered. Oshino shook his head slowly. "I don't know," he said, "but I think they just gave us a chance." I need you to understand how strange it was. Out there in a place where everything had been chaos and noise and dying, suddenly there was this one point of stillness on the western dunes, and it was changing everything. The enemy noticed too. Of course they did. You can't lose 4 of your positions in the space of a few minutes and not notice. Their fire shifted. Some of it peeled off us and started reaching west toward that lone figure on the sand. And I'll tell you, my stomach dropped when I saw it, because whoever that was had just saved our lives twice over without ever meeting us, and now the whole weight of that ridge was turning on them. I expected the shape to break and run. Anyone would. One person against a dug-in force, you run, you find cover, you live to fight another day. That's what makes sense. The shape didn't run. It shifted just slightly, sliding back a few feet below the crest so only the rifle showed, and then it kept working. Calm, crack, pause, crack, each shot spaced out, deliberate like a clock ticking. And every time one of those shots rolled in from the west, somewhere on that eastern ridge, something stopped. Oshino started moving then. He'd been frozen like all of us, but the moment he understood what was happening, the old Oshino came back. He went man to man, low, fast, slapping shoulders, pointing. "We move on the next gap," he said. "When that ridge goes quiet, we move. Raise, you carry Sato, he can't walk on that leg. Mendez, you're on the left, go when I go. Nobody freezes, nobody." Sato was the youngest of us, younger than me even, and he'd taken a round through the thigh early on. He was pale and sweating and trying very hard not to cry out, and when I got my arm under him, he grabbed my sleeve and said, "Don't leave me out here, Raise." "I'm not going anywhere without you," I told him. I meant it. Funny how a person finds something in himself when somebody needs him too. An hour earlier I'd been ready to give up. Now I had this kid's whole weight against my side and I wasn't scared anymore, not the same way. We waited for the gap, and out west the sniper kept working. It went on like that for what felt like an hour, but Oshino told me later was maybe 12 minutes. 12 minutes. The figure on the dune drew fire, absorbed it, gave nothing back except those slow, patient shots, and one by one the enemy positions either fell silent or turned their guns west to deal with the ghost in the sand. And every time they turned west, they took their eyes off us. That was the gift. That was what the shooter was buying us, shot by shot, breath by breath, room to move. When the moment came, Oshino didn't shout. He just hissed, "Now," and we went. I will never forget that run. Sato's arm around my neck, his weight pulling me sideways, my legs burning, the gray sand grabbing at my boots like it wanted to keep us. We ran for a low wash, a dry creek bed maybe 60 meters off, and 60 meters has never been so far in my life. I heard rounds in the sand around us. I heard Mendez grunt and stumble and keep going. I heard Oshino counting us off out loud as we tumbled into the wash one by one, like a parent counting kids off a bus. 1, 2, that's Raise and Sato. 3, 4, Mendez, go down, stay down. 5. We made it. All of us who were still alive made it into that wash. And the second we did, the fire from the ridge swung fully west, away from us, all of it now hunting the figure on the dune. I remember pressing myself into the sand of that creek bed, breathing like I'd never breathed before, and turning my head to look west, to look at whoever had done this. And I watched them get up. The figure rose from the crest of the dune in one smooth motion, rifle slung, and started moving along the ridgeline fast and low away from us, drawing the fire with them, pulling the whole storm to the west so it would stay off us. They never once looked back to see if we'd made it. They just trusted that we had, and they led the danger away. "Who does that?" Mendez said beside me, half laughing, half crying, blood running down his arm. "Who in their right mind does that?" Nobody answered. We just watched that small gray figure disappear over the far side of the dune with the entire weight of the enemy chasing after them, and then we did the only thing we could do. We moved. We used the time they'd bought us. We crawled down that wash, away from the kill zone, carrying our wounded, leaving the ashen flat behind 1 painful meter at a time. Oshino led us west by southwest, away from the ridges, toward a line of low hills he remembered from the maps. It took us until nightfall. We didn't talk much, there wasn't much to say. 3 of our friends were still back there in the gray sand and we couldn't bring them. That's a weight you carry differently than a wounded man. A wounded man you can put down to rest. The dead you carry forever. But we were alive. All 8 of us who'd made it into that wash were still alive when the stars came out. and every single one of us knew exactly why. As we walked, Sato kept asking me about the sniper. He was feverish by then, drifting, and he kept coming back to it like a dream he couldn't shake. "Did you see them rays on the dune, did you see?" "I saw," I told him. "Was it real?" I looked back east at the dark shape of the ashen flat behind us, and I thought about that calm, patient figure who had walked into our death sentence and turned it into a way out, and who had then taken the whole weight of it onto their own back and walked away into the dunes without a word. "It was real," I said. "Whatever it was real." We reached the hills near midnight. Oshino found a hollow between two ridges where we could rest and tend the wounded, and we collapsed there, the 8 of us, more dead than alive but breathing. He took stock. We had a little water left, some field dressings, 2 working rifles between us. We had no radio and no way to call for help, but Oshino figured if we kept moving west at first light, we'd hit a supply road within a day, day and a half. It was a thin hope. But after the ashen flat, thin hope felt like a feast. I took the first watch. I couldn't have slept anyway. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Pell folding to the ground, saw the gray sand, saw that lone figure rising off the dune and walking calmly into the storm. So I sat with my back against the rock and I watched the dark and I thought. At around 2 in the morning, I heard footsteps. Soft ones, coming up the wash toward our hollow. I brought my rifle up and my whole body went cold because the only people who could be out here were the ones who'd been trying to kill us all day. I almost fired. I want to be honest about that. My finger was on the trigger and my heart was going like a drum and I almost fired into the dark at a sound. Then a voice came, low and even, from just outside the rocks. "Easy," it said. "I'm the one who shot for you today. Don't waste a round on me, you haven't got many left." I didn't lower the rifle. "Step out where I can see you." And the figure stepped out into the starlight. It was a woman. I think that's the part that hit me hardest, and I'm not proud of why. I'd built a whole picture in my head, you see. A grizzled old soldier, some legend, some ghost. And instead in the pale light was a woman maybe 30, 35, lean and tired, with sand caked into every line of her face and a long rifle slung across her back. She held her hands open and away from her body so I'd know she meant no harm. She looked like she hadn't slept in a week. She looked like the most ordinary person in the world, and she had killed for us all day long and asked for nothing. "My name is Adiz," she said. "I've been out here a long time." Oshino was awake by then and the others stirring, and we brought her into the hollow and gave her some of our water, which she tried to refuse and which Oshino made her take. And slowly, in pieces, over the next hour, she told us who she was. She'd been part of a forward observation team, she said, months ago. Their position had been overrun. She was the only one who got out. She should have died with the rest of them, and a part of her, I think, believed she had. Instead, she'd survived alone in the desert, living off what she could scavenge, moving at night, hiding in the dunes by day. The ashen flat had become her whole world. She knew it the way you know your own home in the dark. Every ridge, every wash, every place a person could hide. "I'd seen them set the trap before," she said quietly, staring into the dark. "Other patrols. I'd watch from the dunes and there was nothing I could do, one rifle against all of that. By the time I'd worked out a shot, it was always too late. I'd just watch good people die and then I'd move on and hate myself for it." She was quiet a moment. "But today there were enough of you still standing," she went on. "Today I thought maybe if I time it right, maybe if I pull them off you long enough." She looked up at us then, at our faces in the dark. "I didn't think it would work, I want you to know that. I thought I'd get a few of them and then they'd get me and that would be the end of it. But you ran, you actually ran and you made it." Something cracked in her voice just slightly. "You're the first ones who made it, in all this time, the first." Nobody said anything for a while. What do you say to that? This woman had been alone out there for months, watching people die, unable to save them, carrying that, and today she'd finally pulled it off and the weight of it was sitting right there on her face in the starlight. It was Sato, feverish, half-conscious Sato, who said the thing the rest of us couldn't find. He reached out from where he was lying and touched her hand and he said, "Thank you for not giving up on us." And Adiz, who had walked into our death and walked back out, who had taken the whole weight of that ridge onto her own back and led it away into the dunes, this woman who had been alone with the dead for months, put her other hand over Sato's and bowed her head, and I watched a tear cut a clean line down through the gray dust on her face. She came with us after that, of course she did. We weren't going to leave her out there, and the truth is, without her we'd never have made it to the supply road. She knew the land. She moved us at night, rested us by day in places no one would ever look, found us water from a seep she discovered months back. 3 days it took, 3 hard days, but she walked us out of the ashen flat, all 8 of us, everyone we had left. We hit the supply road on the 4th morning. A convoy picked us up within the hour. There was confusion, paperwork, medics swarming Sato and Mendez, a lot of questions none of us could answer well, and in all that noise and movement I lost track of her. By the time things settled, by the time I thought to look, Adiz was gone. I asked around, nobody had logged her. Nobody had her name. It was like she'd never been there at all, like she'd just been a piece of the desert that walked with us a while and then went back to being sand and wind. Some of the guys later said maybe we'd imagined her. The heat, the shock, the desperation. Maybe the mind builds a savior when it needs one badly enough. But Sato still had the field dressing she'd wrapped around his leg with her own hands, and I still had the canteen she'd filled at her secret seep. So no, we didn't imagine her. She was real, she just didn't want to be found. I think after months alone out there, she didn't quite know how to come back. I think the desert had become the only place she understood. I've thought about her a lot in the years since, about what it takes to do what she did. To be alone that long, to fail that many times, to watch and not be able to help, and to keep your rifle clean and your eyes sharp anyway, just in case. Just in case the day came when there were enough people still standing that one steady hand might tip it. Most people would have broken. Most people would have stopped watching, stopped caring, let the desert have them. She didn't. She waited in the gray sand for the one day she could matter, and when it came, she spent everything she had on strangers and asked for nothing back. They told us no one survives the ashen flat, and they were almost right. 11 of us went out, 3 came home in the ground, but 8 of us came home walking, and we came home because somewhere out in those dead gray dunes there was one person who refused to believe the thing everybody else believed. I never saw Adiz again. I don't know if she's still out there or if the desert finally took her the way she'd half expected it to all along. But sometimes, when the world feels too heavy and giving up feels like the only sensible thing left, I think about a lone figure lying flat on a dune, the color of the sand itself, watching, waiting, refusing. And I pick my rifle back up, whatever my rifle happens to be that day. Because she taught me the only thing that ever really mattered out there. It isn't that no one survives, it's that someone always decides whether that stays true. And sometimes that someone is just one tired person in the sand who could have walked away and didn't.